The engine room of the Wanderer smelled like oil and rust. Kong Tae wiped his hands on a dirty cloth and looked at the machine he had just fixed. It was old and broken in many places, but now it worked again. That was his job. He fixed things that nobody else wanted to fix. Tae was 32 years old. He had a thin face and tired eyes. His black hair was always messy, and his clothes were always stained with grease. He was not tall or strong. He was not handsome or impressive. He was just a man who worked with machines in the dark belly of a cargo ship. The year was 4347. Humans had met aliens 60 years ago. At first, everyone on Earth was excited. They thought it would change everything. And it did change everything. Just not in the way they hoped. Humans learned quickly that they were small in this galaxy. There were species that had traveled between stars for thousands of years. They had technology that humans could not even understand. They had power, money, and influence. And they looked at humans the way humans might look at ants. Most humans who left Earth worked simple jobs. They cleaned alien ships. They carried cargo. They repaired machines. They did the work that aliens did not want to do. The pay was enough to survive, but not enough to matter. Tae had accepted this life a long time ago. He did not complain. He did not argue. He just worked, ate alone, and slept in his small room. The other crew members thought he was strange, but they also knew he was reliable. If something was broken, Tae could fix it. He finished cleaning his tools and put them back in their places. Then he reached under his shirt and touched a small pendant hanging from his neck. It was made of simple metal, shaped like a tiny star. His sister Yuna had given it to him many years ago, before she died. Tae closed his eyes for a moment. He could still hear her voice sometimes. She used to call him Appa and follow him everywhere. She used to believe he could do anything. But he could not save her when she got sick. He could not do anything at all. He let go of the pendant and walked to the crew dining area. It was a small room with metal tables and hard chairs. A few crew members were eating and talking loudly. Tae took his food and sat in the corner, away from everyone else. A large man named Bora sat down across from him. Bora was the ship's cargo handler. He was friendly, but Tae wished he would go away. "Did you hear the news?" Bora asked with a big smile. "We got a new contract. Big money this time." Tae did not look up from his food. "What kind of contract?" "Medical supplies. We're delivering them to a Valoran colony world." Bora leaned closer and lowered his voice. "Valorans, Tae, the blue-skinned ones. They run one of the 3 biggest empires in the galaxy." Tae had heard of the Valorans. Everyone had. They were beautiful and proud. They lived for hundreds of years. They believed they were better than everyone else, especially humans. "The captain wants you to go with the cargo," Bora said. "They need a technical specialist for some machine contracts. You know, someone to explain how the equipment works." Dad finally looked up. "Me? Why me?" Bora shrugged. "Because you're the best we have. And because nobody else wants to deal with Valorans." He laughed at his own joke. Tae did not laugh. He did not want to go. He did not want to stand in front of aliens who would look at him like he was nothing. But he also knew he had no choice. This was his job. This was his life. Later that night, Tae lay in his small bed and stared at the ceiling. The ship made soft humming sounds as it moved through space. He tried to sleep, but his mind would not rest. When sleep finally came, it brought nightmares. He was running through a burning corridor. Fire was everywhere. The walls were melting. The air was so hot it hurt to breathe. And somewhere ahead, a child was screaming. He ran faster. He had to reach her. He had to save her. The fire grew bigger. The heat became unbearable. He could see a small figure through the flames. She was trapped. She was crying. He reached out his hand. The fire burned his skin, but he did not stop. He never stopped. Tae woke up gasping for air. His body was covered in cold sweat. He sat up and grabbed his sister's pendant, holding it tight against his chest. Just a dream. Just a memory. He looked at his arms in the dim light. The burn scars were still there. stretching from his wrists to his shoulders. They were old scars now, faded but permanent. He had told everyone they were from an engine accident. Nobody asked questions. The ship was quiet. Everyone else was sleeping. Tay got out of bed and walked to the small window in the corridor. He looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, on a world called Valora Prime, there was a palace made of crystal and light. There was an empress who ruled over billions of lives, and there was a little girl who probably did not remember him at all. It was better that way. He had saved her because it was the right thing to do. He had not wanted thanks or rewards. He had just wanted her to live. An old crew member walked past him in the corridor. The man stopped and looked at Tay with serious eyes. "You're going to Valoran space," the old man said. "Let me give you some advice. Stay invisible out there. Valorans don't like humans who draw attention. Keep your head down. Do your job. Come back alive." Tay nodded. "I understand." The old man walked away. Tay looked out at the stars one more time. He did not know that his life was about to change. He did not know that the universe had strange plans for quiet men who fix machines in the dark. He just touched his pendant, thought of his sister, and waited for morning to come. 18 months earlier, Kung Tae worked on a ship called the Celestine. It was not a cargo ship. It was a luxury cruiser, the kind that carried wealthy aliens through the safest parts of space. The passengers wore expensive clothes and ate expensive food. They never saw workers like Tae. He spent his days in the engine rooms, fixing machines and staying out of sight. The Celestine was beautiful. Its walls were covered in soft fabrics and golden decorations. Its windows showed the stars like paintings. But Tae only saw the dark corridors below deck where the real work happened. He did not mind. The pay was good, and the work was simple. He woke up, fixed machines, ate alone, and went to sleep. The same routine every day. He liked routine. It kept him from thinking too much. On that day, everything seemed normal. Tae was working on a cooling system that had stopped working. His hands were dirty, and his back was sore. He was thinking about dinner when the first explosion happened. The ship shook so hard that Tae fell to the ground. Alarms started screaming. Red lights flashed everywhere. The calm voice of the ship's computer announced, "Warning. Hull breach detected. All passengers proceed to escape pods." Tae grabbed the wall and pulled himself up. Another explosion hit. Then another. Through the metal walls, he could hear something terrible. The sound of weapons. The sound of screams pirates. He had heard stories about pirates attacking ships in space. They came fast and hard. They killed the crew. They took the passengers for ransom. They left nothing behind. Tae ran through the corridors. Smoke was filling the air. Crew members were running in every direction, shouting orders that nobody followed. The ship was dying and everyone knew it. He should have gone to the escape pods. He should have saved himself. That was the smart thing to do. But as he ran past a collapsed corridor, he heard something that made him stop. A child was crying. Tae turned his head. Through the smoke, he could see that part of the ceiling had fallen. Fire was spreading across the floor. And somewhere behind that wall of flames, a small voice was calling for help. He did not think. He did not hesitate. He ran toward the fire. The heat hit him like a punch. His skin felt like it was melting. But he pushed forward, climbing over broken metal and burning debris. The smoke made it hard to see. The fire made it hard to breathe. But the crying was getting closer. Then he saw her. A tiny girl with blue skin and silver eyes. She was Valoran. She could not have been older than 6 years. Her legs were trapped under a heavy piece of metal. 2 adult Valorans lay nearby, not moving. Her handmaidens, probably, they had tried to protect her and they had failed. The girl looked up at Tae with eyes full of terror. Tears were running down her blue cheeks. She was shaking so hard she could barely speak. "Please," she whispered. "Please help me." Tae dropped to his knees beside her. The fire was getting closer. He could feel his arms burning as he grabbed the metal piece and tried to lift it. It was too heavy. His muscles screamed. His skin blistered. But he did not stop. With one final push, He moved the metal just enough for the girl to pull her legs free. He scooped her up in his arms and held her against his chest. "I've got you," he said softly. "You're going to be okay. Just hold on to me." The girl wrapped her thin arms around his neck. She buried her face against his shoulder. She was so small, so fragile, so scared. Tay ran. The corridor was falling apart around him. Walls cracked. Ceilings collapsed. Fire was everywhere. A burning beam fell toward them, and Tay turned his back, letting it hit him instead of the child. The pain was so terrible he almost screamed, but he kept running. He talked to her the whole time. He did not even know what he was saying. Just words. Soft words. Calm words. "It's okay. We're almost there. I won't let anything hurt you. Just hold on." He found the last working escape pod at the end of a burning hallway. The door was still open. There was room for one person. Maybe two if they were small. Tay put the girl inside the pod. She looked up at him with those silver eyes. She did not want to let go of his hand. "You have to stay with me," she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. Tay shook his head. "There's no time. You need to go now." He pressed the button to close the door. "You're going to be okay. I promise." The door closed between them. Through the small window, he could see her face. She was crying again. She was pressing her tiny hand against the glass. Tay pressed the launch button. The pod shot out into space, carrying the girl to safety. He watched it go until the corridor collapsed around him. He woke up 3 days later in a hospital ship. They told him he was lucky to be alive. His burns were severe. He would have scars forever. But he would survive. Nobody asked him about the girl. Nobody knew he had saved her. In the chaos of the attack, there were no records. No cameras. No witnesses. The rescue teams found him half dead under burning debris. They marked him as unidentified human survivor and moved on. Tay never told anyone what he did. He did not want attention. He did not want rewards. He just wanted to know that the little girl was safe. Somewhere in the galaxy, in a palace made of crystal and light. A young princess told her mother about the human who carried her through the fire. She remembered his voice. She remembered his kind eyes. She remembered the way he held her and promised everything would be okay. The Valoran Empire searched for him. But they never found him. The princess never forgot him. And Tay went back to fixing machines in the dark, carrying his scars in silence, never knowing that one day the universe would bring them together again. The Imperial Palace of Valora Prime was the most beautiful building Kong Tay had ever seen. Its towers reached toward the sky like frozen lightning. Its walls were made of crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Gardens floated in the air around it, filled with flowers that existed on no other world. Tay stood at the back of the human delegation, trying to make himself invisible. He was wearing borrowed formal clothes that did not fit properly. The jacket was too tight. The shoes hurt his feet. He felt like a beggar pretending to be a prince. The human ambassador, a woman named Hannah, walked at the front of the group. She was confident and elegant, with sharp eyes and a calm voice. She knew how to talk to aliens. She knew how to play their political games. Tay did not know any of those things. He was only here because someone needed to explain how the mining equipment worked. They walked through endless corridors of crystal and gold. Valoran guards stood along the walls, tall and beautiful, with blue skin and cold eyes. They looked at the humans the way someone might look at insects that had wandered into their home. Tay kept his head down. He remembered the old crew member's advice. Stay invisible. Don't draw attention. Finally, they reached the Grand Throne Hall. It was so large that Tay could not see the ceiling. Thousands of crystals floated in the air, casting rainbow light across everything. Valoran nobles stood in perfect rows, wearing clothes made of fabrics that shimmered like water. At the far end of the hall sat Empress Nola on a throne of pure white crystal. She was the most beautiful woman Tay had ever seen. Her blue skin was flawless. Her silver hair flowed down her back like a waterfall. Her eyes were cold and proud. the eyes of someone who ruled over billions of lives. Beside her throne stood High Commander Doran, the leader of the Imperial Guard. He was a large Valoran with scars on his face and suspicion in his eyes. He watched the humans like a hunter watching prey. Ambassador Hannah stepped forward and bowed deeply. "Your Imperial Majesty, we are honored to be received in your magnificent palace. The Earth Confederacy sends its warmest regards and hopes for a successful partnership." Empress Nola nodded slightly. Her voice was soft, but carried across the entire hall. "Humanity has always been eager for partnership. We shall see if this eagerness is matched by value." She looked at the small group of humans with polite disinterest. "You may present your delegation." One by one, the humans were introduced. Diplomats, advisors, trade specialists. When they reached Tay, Ambassador Hannah hesitated for just a moment. "And this is Kong Tay, our technical specialist for the machinery contracts." Tay bowed awkwardly. He did not look up. He could feel hundreds of alien eyes on him, judging him, dismissing him. He wished he could disappear into the floor. A soft voice echoed through the hall. "Mother, I am here as you requested." Tay looked up without thinking. A small girl walked into the throne hall. She had blue skin like her mother, but softer, younger. Her silver eyes were bright and curious. She wore a white dress, decorated with tiny crystals. She moved with careful grace, clearly trained in royal manners. Princess Lyra was 8 years old now. She had grown since that night on the burning ship, but Tay recognized her immediately. He would never forget those eyes. His heart stopped. His hands began to shake. He told himself to look away. He told himself to stay invisible. But he could not move. He could not breathe. The princess walked toward the delegation with a polite smile. She was supposed to greet the guests. It was a diplomatic tradition. She had done this many times before. Her eyes moved across the human faces. Polite, disinterested, routine. Then her eyes found Tay. She stopped walking. Her polite smile disappeared. Her small body went completely still. For a long moment, she just stared at him. Her silver eyes grew wide. Her hands began to tremble. The entire hall noticed. Whispers spread through the crowd. The Empress leaned forward on her throne, her cold expression shifting to concern. "Lyra? What is wrong?" The princess did not answer. She walked slowly toward Tay, her eyes never leaving his face. The crowd parted around her. Guards moved closer, hands on their weapons. Tay wanted to run. He wanted to hide. But his legs would not move. Lyra stopped right in front of him. She was so small. The top of her head barely reached his chest. She looked up at him with an expression that was part wonder, part recognition, part something else entirely. Slowly, she turned toward her mother. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but in the perfect silence of the hall, everyone heard her. "Mom, that's him." The words hung in the air like thunder. Every person in the throne hall stopped moving. The nobles stopped whispering. The guards stopped breathing. Even the floating crystals seemed to freeze in place. Empress Nola rose from her throne. Her face had gone pale. "Lyra, what do you mean? Who is he?" The princess looked back at Tay. Tears were forming in her silver eyes. She reached out and took his scarred hand in her tiny fingers. "Mother," her voice broke. "He carried me through the fire." Silence became absolute. 1,000 Valoran eyes turned to stare at the unremarkable human in the borrowed clothes. The human who had not spoken a single word. The human who wanted nothing more than to be invisible. Tay looked down at the small hand holding his. Then he looked up at the Empress. He had no words. He had no explanations. He just stood there, trapped in a moment he had never expected, and the entire palace fell into stunned silence. The silence in the throne hall lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like forever. Then everything happened at once. Empress Nola's voice cut through the air like ice. "Guards, bring him forward." 2 massive Valoran guards grabbed Tay's arms and dragged him to the front of the hall. His feet barely touched the ground. Princess Lyra ran after them, shouting for them to stop. but her handmaidens held her back. Tay was thrown to his knees before the throne. He looked up at the Empress. Her beautiful face showed no emotion, but her eyes burned with something dangerous, confusion, suspicion, and beneath it all something that might have been hope. "Who are you?" she demanded. "Tell me the truth, human. If you lie, I will know." Tay's voice came out rough and quiet. "My name is Kong Tay. I am a repair technician. That is all I am. That is not what my daughter claims." The Empress looked at Lyra, who was still struggling against her handmaidens. "She says you saved her life. She says you are the one we have searched for." High Commander Doran stepped forward. His hand rested on his weapon. "This could be a trick, Your Majesty. The humans could have planted this man to manipulate us. We should not trust him." "I'm not lying," Lyra shouted. Tears were streaming down her face now. "I remember him, Mother. I remember his voice. He told me everything would be okay. He carried me through the fire when everyone else was dead. He put me in the escape pod. He saved my life." The Empress raised her hand and the hall fell silent again. She studied Tay with those cold silver eyes. He could not tell what she was thinking. "If you are truly the one who saved my daughter," she said slowly, "then you will have proof. The man who rescued her was burned. Badly. He used his own body to shield her from the flames." "Oh." She paused. "Show me." Tay understood. With shaking hands, he removed his jacket. Then he unbuttoned his shirt and let it fall from his shoulders. The hall gasped. His arms, his back, his chest all were covered in old burn scars. The skin was rough and twisted, a map of pain that had never fully healed. The scars told a story without words. A story of fire and sacrifice and desperate courage. Lyra broke free from her handmaidens and ran to him. She wrapped her small arms around his scarred chest and held him tight. "It's him," she sobbed. "Mother, it's really him." Empress Nola slowly descended from her throne. She walked across the hall until she stood directly in front of Tay. Up close, she seemed less like a cold ruler and more like a mother who had almost lost her only child. "Look at me," she commanded. Tay raised his eyes to meet hers. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Then the Empress spoke to her guards. "Bring me the records from the Celestine disaster. All of them. Now." While they waited, nobody moved. The nobles whispered among themselves. Commander Doran watched Tay with suspicious eyes. Ambassador Hannah stood frozen, not understanding what was happening, and little Lyra refused to let go of Tay. Her face pressed against his scarred skin. When the records arrived, the Empress examined them carefully. Medical reports, survivor lists, rescue logs. Her face changed as she read. The coldness melted. Something else took its place. "There was an unidentified human survivor," she said quietly. "Male, severe burns across his upper body. Found beneath burning debris on Deck 7. No identification. No explanation for his injuries." She looked at Tay. "That was you?" Tay nodded slowly. "Yes. Why did you never come forward? Why did you never claim the reward we offered? The Empire searched for you for months. We would have given you anything." Tay was quiet for a moment. Lyra was still holding him. He could feel her small heart beating against his chest. "She was a child," he finally said. "She was scared and alone. Her protectors were dead. The ship was burning. What else could I do?" He looked down at the princess. "I didn't want rewards. I just wanted her to live." These simple words hit harder than any grand speech could have. The nobles stopped whispering. Commander Doran's suspicious expression cracked. Even the Empress seemed stunned. "You walked through fire for a child you did not know," she said slowly. "An alien child. You nearly died. And you asked for nothing in return." "I'm not special," Tay said. Any decent person would have done the same. But they both knew that was not true. Most people would have run. Most people would have saved themselves. What Tay did was not normal. It was extraordinary. Lyra looked up at her mother with pleading eyes. "He never asked for anything, Mother. He just saved me and disappeared. Can we protect him now?" like he protected me." The Empress looked at her daughter. Then she looked at the scarred human kneeling before her throne. Something changed in her expression. The cold Empress became a grateful mother. "In Valoran culture," she announced to the hall, "a life debt is the most sacred bond. Someone who saves a member of the royal family is owed a debt that can never be fully repaid." She reached down and took Tay's hand, pulling him to his feet. "This human saved my daughter. He walked through fire for her. He asked for nothing." She turned to face the assembled nobles. Her voice rang through the hall. "Today, the Valoran Empire acknowledges its debt. This man is no longer an outsider. He is a friend of the throne." The hall erupted. Nobles gasped. Guards stood at attention. Ambassador Hannah covered her mouth in shock, but Tay barely noticed. He was looking down at Lyra, who was smiling up at him through her tears. "I knew I would find you someday," she whispered. "I never forgot your voice." Tay felt something in his chest. Something warm. Something he had not felt in a very long time. He thought of his sister. He touched his pendant through the fabric of his fallen shirt. Maybe, just maybe, the universe was giving him a second chance. The days that followed changed everything. Empress Nola held a formal ceremony in the Grand Throne Hall. Nobles from across the Valoran Empire attended. Ambassadors from other alien species came to witness. News cameras broadcast the event across the galaxy. Kong Tay stood before the throne in new clothes that actually fit. They were simple but elegant, chosen by Lyra herself. She had refused to let anyone else help him prepare. The Empress spoke to the assembled crowd. Her voice was carried to billions of listeners across 1,000 worlds. Today, the Valoran Empire honors a human named Kong Tay. 18 months ago, when pirates attacked the luxury cruiser Celestine, this man did something remarkable. He walked through fire to save a child he did not know. He suffered terrible wounds to protect her. And when she was safe, he disappeared without asking for recognition or reward. The hall was completely silent. That child was my daughter, Princess Lyra, the heir to our empire. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Even those who already knew the story felt its weight. This human showed courage, compassion, and selflessness that would honor anyone of any species. Today, I declare him a friend of the throne. He is granted citizenship in the Valoran Empire. He will receive lands, wealth, and the eternal gratitude of our people. The crowd applauded, but Tay barely heard them. He was looking at Lyra, who stood beside her mother's throne with the biggest smile he had ever seen. After the ceremony, Ambassador Hannah found Tay in a quiet garden. He was sitting on a stone bench looking at a fountain made of floating water. "Do you understand what just happened?" Hannah asked. "You've changed everything. Humans have always been seen as lesser beings in this galaxy. Weak, insignificant. But now, the most powerful empress in the galaxy just called a human her friend. This will spread across every world. Every species will hear this story." Tay shook his head. "I didn't do it for politics." "I know," Hannah said softly. "That's exactly why it matters." She sat down beside him. "You saved her because she was scared and alone, and you couldn't walk away. That simple act of kindness is doing more for humanity's reputation than 100 years of diplomacy." Tay touched his pendant. "I'm not a hero. I'm just a man who fixes machines." Hannah smiled. "Maybe that's what makes you the perfect hero." The next few weeks were strange for Tay. He was given a beautiful room in the palace. Servants brought him food and asked if he needed anything. Nobles, who once would have ignored him now, bowed when they passed. He hated all of it. He did not want wealth or attention. He wanted to be invisible again. But there was one thing he did not hate. Lyra. The princess came to see him every day. She showed him her favorite places in the palace. She told him about her studies, her dreams, her fears. She asked him questions about Earth and humans and what it was like to travel on cargo ships. She was not afraid of his scars. She would hold his damaged hands without hesitation. She would lean against him while she read her books. She treated him like he was the most important person in the galaxy, and slowly, Tay began to change. He started to smile again. He started to talk more. The walls he had built around his heart began to crack. For the first time since his sister died, he felt like he had a family. One evening, Tay stood on a palace balcony watching the stars. The sky on Valora Prime was filled with swirling colors, more beautiful than any sunset on Earth. He was thinking about how strange life could be. Small footsteps approached. Lyra appeared beside him and slipped her hand into his. "Are you happy here?" she asked. Tay considered the question. "I'm not sure I remember how to be happy." "I can teach you," Lyra said seriously. "You taught me that everything would be okay. Now I can teach you." Tay looked down at her, this small princess who had somehow become the center of his world. "That sounds fair." They stood together in silence for a while, watching the stars. Then Lyra spoke again. "Were you scared? In the fire?" Tay thought about that night. The heat, the pain, the terror. He could still feel it sometimes, in his nightmares. "Yes," he admitted. "I was very scared." "Then why did you save me?" It was a simple question, but it reached deep into his heart. He touched his pendant, his sister's last gift hand, found his answer. "Because you were more scared than I was," he said. "And I couldn't let you face that alone. Nobody should face the darkness alone." Lyra squeezed his hand. She leaned her head against his arm. "Thank you for finding me in the fire." Tay felt tears forming in his eyes. He blinked them away. "Thank you for finding me after." The galaxy would remember this story for generations. Not because of politics or power, not because of treaties or trade, but because of a simple truth that transcended species and empires. Humanity's worth was never measured in technology or strength. It was measured in the willingness of one quiet man to walk through fire for a child who was not his own. The Valorans would never forget this lesson, and neither would the rest of the galaxy, far away. On cargo ships and space stations and distant worlds, humans heard the story of Kong Tay. They stood a little taller. They smiled a little brighter. They understood something important. They were not weak. They were not insignificant. They carried within them a power greater than any weapon or technology. The power of compassion, the power of sacrifice, the power of simple human kindness. And that, in the end, was worth more than all the stars in the sky.